If somebody asked you to think of two policies that were diametrically opposed to each other and completely incompatible, you'd be hard-pressed to beat the combination of electric vehicles and net zero. On the one hand, we have the unrealistic goal of net zero, where we're mindlessly abandoning cheap and reliable gas and coal-fired baseload electricity generation in favour of farts and sunbeams, wind and solar, which, surprisingly, don't work when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. So this wonderful new net zero grid is actually less stable, less reliable and less flexible as a result. But on the other, we have the push to get everyone into electric vehicles, which, and the clues in the name, need electricity to charge, and which will put more strain and demand on that less stable and less reliable grid that net zero is creating. You literally couldn't make this kind of stuff up. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. In the last few years in Sydney, our electricity bills have gone through the roof, thanks to a lack of generation capacity and an energy market which has considerable volatility in pricing, due to the grid's inability to cater for fluctuating demand. Here's a chart showing just the last 24 hours of electricity pricing in New South Wales, where 1 megawatt hour has swung from as low as $20 to as high as over $720. So when demand goes up, so does the price, because we can't simply spin up a gas turbine or two anymore to cover the gaps. And look where the lowest demand occurs, middle of the day, when solar is pumping out way too much, which can only be stored by pumped hydro or huge lithium-ion battery energy storage systems, which are a safety nightmare. Just ask those guys over at Otay Mesa how they're all going. So how those in government think that making everyone buy electric cars is somehow a good idea when the grid is barely functioning now is beyond my understanding. This is particularly the case with EV fast charging, where the cost of electricity is so volatile that there's almost no hope of making any kind of profit. And as a result, few private companies are brave enough, or stupid enough, to invest in such public charging stations. All it takes is one spike of demand, say several EVs charging at once, and you'll end up getting whacked with a terrifying demand charge that can wipe out your profit in an instant. Even the energy press are starting to acknowledge this fact. Demand power charges are the Achilles heel of a nationwide EV fast charging network. The road to wide-scale electric vehicle adoption faces many challenges, and not limited to vehicle affordability and concerns of an inadequate charging infrastructure. In this article, I will explore another barrier that is infrequently discussed, the challenge of achieving public fast charger DCFC profitability. Factors that impact DCFC profitability include low utilization percentages due to the high percentage of home charging and that EVs represent less than 1% of the total US vehicle fleet, and also high operating costs from demand power charges. Demand power is typically the highest electricity usage during a 15-minute period in a billing cycle, and utilities charge a premium for it. By measuring spikes in power demand and charging a higher fee to supply it, a utility is better prepared to deliver electricity under all power demand scenarios and be able to afford to invest in the infrastructure to do so. The cost of demand power at my office location is $3.41 per kilowatt, which is 22 times more than the overall cost of electricity. Let's examine a hypothetical for a public EV charging station in Colorado, where the median of all utility maximum demand power charge averages $16.65 per kilowatt. This charging station has 10 charging bays, and we can assume all 10 bays would be used simultaneously at least once in the billing cycle. The chargers all have a capacity of 150 kilowatts plus, and each of the 10 EVs being charged are each consuming an average of 125 kilowatts. The cost for demand power for the 15-minute spike in power demand would be $20,812.25, payable to the utility by the charging station owner. That's 1,250 kilowatts times $16.65 equals the total. If the everyday cost of energy to charge at this station was 50 cents per kilowatt hour, the revenue collected for this same 15 minutes would only be $156.25, or over 20 grand less. For this station to be profitable, the high cost of demand power would have to be recovered from the other charges sold during the month. Demand charges can wipe out charging station profits so easily it's no wonder that charging companies have gone to the wall already, as they realise they're not a viable business. As the article concludes, the challenges for achieving DCFC profitability might be one reason this country's largest EV manufacturer fired their entire 500-member charging team. Perhaps it was discovered that this division was an important drain on profitability, and why Wall Street does not appear to recognise its robust charging system as an important source of future profitability. The cost to construct, operate and maintain a DCFC station is significantly higher than for a gasoline station. If DCFC stations cannot be operated profitably, what does it mean for the viability of the transition to an electric vehicle world that many are aspiring for? Indeed so. And it's made far worse by the fact that electricity will be ever more expensive as we plough headlong into the madness of net zero and the abandoning of reliable baseload generation. Of course, the answer to all of this is nuclear, which would completely remove the need to rely on unpredictable wind and solar, and would add some stability to the grid and help to bring down prices. But it will be decades before we can enjoy cheap, reliable electricity again. For now, those good times have well and truly ended.